Hey Joe, before Mark gets started, Joe, what was the $3 you were talking about on the picnic?
Oh, I thought that was just a charge for everybody for the food and all that, no?
No.
Did we change that?
That was never in play.
It's been on here for weeks.
We did talk one time about asking the singles to come, somebody that wasn't in the class.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
No
That's
$3 charge.
So that would be their contribution if they wanted to join us.
Okay.
Our class is going to fund the picnic, obviously, and part of that is we always have an offering over here, so if anybody can give at any time, that's appreciated too.
Yeah, but what's most important is no charge.
The most important is no charge
Yes,
at all,
yes.
except for the entrance into the park.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Whatever Mark.
Backdrop is like sort of like mesmerized. Who in here watches American Idol? Who likes the parts when they first started, about the people that were really bad but think they're good?
That's quite interesting. Oh, wait a minute. Did you participate?
No.
You have no room to talk now. No. Unless you participate.
Some of us have shame and we know better.
Is that you in the dress there?
Listen to this, Leon, you have rhythm though, so you get a pass here. There's some of the rest of you. Please, not in front of the kids, just, you know.
Larry's right in the middle.
I was going to say he is pretty like in the middle of the maple. I love it.
The shame, absolutely. Is this going to be on YouTube?
Oh, I love
It is.
Is it on
It's
YouTube?
already on YouTube.
Oh, CPG.
So,
See?
like,
It's on YouTube. Karaoke Part 2.
Oh, Cliff, you're just too funny.
there's 10,000 hits on it.
He probably gets paid for it,
That's
doesn't
what I'm saying.
he? How much you make off of it?
No.
He's using all of your
Donate
inabilities
that to
to
the
dance.
church.
What was the hit? Did Larry sing Elvis with the wig on?
No, Bill wanted him to.
Was he the fat Elvis? Did he come out as the fat Elvis?
The Big E didn't show up.
No, the Big E didn't?
No, Big E didn't.
Big E was
But I
probably
will
on
say, for all of those who didn't, they missed on a great
That's
time.
right.
It was a-
40-something, they
it was a
said,
riot.
40-something people?
We had a lot of fun, and it was terrific. So we'll do that again, and hopefully the next time the data work out. Those did make-
Truly sorry I missed that. Truly sorry. Okay, we're done. Okay. Let's do a little review. We're going to continue with our what would you call it, exposition? Whatever. On how to take your testimony, derived from, or move it into witnessing to people. First of all, what's the difference? What's the difference between a testimony and witnessing to somebody? Yeah.
Your testimony is sharing your story, witnessing is telling them about Jesus.
That's about as good as you want to put it. Okay. Is anybody here, the last couple of weeks weren't here that didn't get the handouts? It's not critical, but if you want it, we have some. Greg, you were here. You were here.
He needs another one.
Well, we got a couple of things here, just because I got extra, so we might as well use them up. If you don't have them, these are the verses for the bridge program. You remember? Ronnie, you have one too.
No, I didn't call. I was here.
Did you
He
go
wasn't here. Oh,
Boy, he's tough on those pass
These are the verses that we use for the bridge presentation, and if you saw Karen and Laurie go through that. Anybody else need that?
Mark. Have Marty make more coffee.
Anybody else? Sure, we do have one too. Well, we're not going to go over this, just if you want to have it.
I don't think you're lying. You weren't here, right? Right, I know you're lying. Everybody else got it?
You weren't here? Okay, that's all we have there. Now, who didn't get from a couple weeks ago the plan of salvation? Anybody else? You have that, right?
I don't know if I got
You
that
have
one.
that too. You were here. You being accepted.
I don't know, was I Mark?
I don't know.
I
need that too. I need that. One more?
You need that too?
I need it.
Very nice.
You need this one too? You need this one
I
too?
just gave it to her.
Is that it? Okay.
Mark.
No, right here, right here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me test. Is that it? Larry, you got these? Oh. Affordable health insurance.
That's Jesus Christ.
That's what happened to
Spiritual health.
Okay.
Joe. Yeah.
Now, we have new ones, but you're not getting those yet. Okay, so we know the difference between a testimony and witnessing. Who in here has a testimony?
Everybody should have one. Everybody.
That's it? Okay, Larry, we're going to teach a class on lying, because everybody is lying. Everybody has a testimony. You may not know it, but you do. And your testimony is derived from life experiences. We all have life experiences. Most of them not that great. Because when you start putting your testimony together, and we had Joe, Mike, Rodney, who's not here, the ones we talked about. Is Angela here?
Angela's right there.
Oh, there you are, Angela. Didn't hear yours. Was it bad? Was it bad stuff? It was bad stuff? Really bad stuff?
She thought so.
As bad as like Joe and Mike?
Oh, you were. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna put a section for
It
you.
was great seeing you on the big screen.
Oh,
Okay, unless your life experiences are you're born filthy rich, everything came to you, was handed to you, you were good looking, some of us are cursing that. Nothing bad ever happens. You know, chances are your testimony is going to involve life experiences that may be a little different. It's like the old Steve Martin routine, if you remember, it said, how do you become a millionaire? First you get $1 million. Well, it doesn't always work that way, you know? So you have to build on your experiences and develop your testimony. We've heard some pretty compelling ones here in this class over the last 6 or 8 weeks. And again, Charlie's not here, right? Is Charlie here?
I got a text, he's on his way.
Charlie's coming? Because Charlie's going to do his testimony to get there.
Yeah.
Okay. What happens in life that crafts our own personal testimony? Not specifics, but in general, usually some event or events that are life-changing. A lot of times, not just life-changing, but they really alter a lot of stuff. And it's usually not something good. Otherwise, you don't have the impact. But what causes that? Whose fault is it? If something happens, whether it's a kid, you were stealing something from your neighbor, or you got caught in school selling drugs. Mike, did you do that? You sold it too? You sold it to Joe?
No,
Joe, did you ever
no,
buy
I didn't
drugs
get
from Mike?
caught. Maybe.
Maybe? But all he says, still, it's our fault. It's nobody else's fault.
It's a wrong choice.
Right? But what causes us to go through these things?
Bad choices.
Bad choices, and you have to pay consequences, correct? Hopefully, a lot of times, a lot of you people here are here because you have righted the ship to a degree. Not that we don't have problems, but we have issues. Here's the thing, and we're going to get this because we're going to continue this. Are we almost finished with this, Larry? Are you going to teach again someday? Just curious, because this class is really going to dwindle if I have to keep doing it.
He's done a very good job.
Well, obviously I'll be teaching next week, but we will continue sharing our testimony
We're gonna
because
continue that,
we need to
okay.
practice that and we need to continue it. So that will
And you'll
continue.
continue on as well.
We'll talk about that later. You deal with Medora, I'm not. Okay, Cliff, how much leeway do you need?
Let me know.
Okay, don't start it yet. Don't start it. Okay, we live in Florida. We're getting ready to go through some type of weather thing. We don't know what it's going to be. Everybody here, were you here for one more?
Yep.
Everybody? Who has houses? Not condos, but houses where you have to take care of your yard, stuff like that. Cut grass,
Yep.
Terry?
Yeah.
Couple times a year.
Sometimes?
Couple times a year, I got my.
Okay, if you don't cut your grass for, say, a year,
Oh, my.
what happens?
The code people come to your house and arrest
You're
you.
looking at a mess.
Yeah.
Okay, who has trees in their yard that we supposed to, everybody's got palm trees?
No, I don't have.
No palm trees? You have no palm trees?
No.
You live in Florida with
Yeah, but I have no palm trees. I do. But no, I have not one palm tree on my property. That's in my house. I have tons of trees. I have dreaded black olive. I have several
Okay, who's got black
cypress
olives?
trees.
We cut our black olives down.
Yeah, but I have, these are mammoth. But then
Who's got oaks?
I do, I have oaks.
Oak. And
I have
some
cassia trees that draw the butterflies,
Okay.
you know?
Do you have to trim them?
Yeah. Oh, I have it's just beautiful. It's a powder puff tree. And it's massive. Because it has pink powder puffs on it, and it's really dense, and it is just, and I try to trim it from the bottom, and it's very hard, and then I have to call a tree guy like a couple times a year because I can't get on the top. And I
It's
have that
called
thing.
a powder puff tree.
You want one?
It's, they're beautiful.
No.
They are beautiful.
It's hilarious.
I have a picture, I'll show it to you.
Okay. Okay. Do you have to prune your trees?
Yeah.
Yes.
What happens if you don't? If you don't prune a black olive, anybody have any idea what happens outside of the fact it ruins your driveway, it ruins your car, it ruins everything, and the roots lift up your house, and then you get letters from the city saying, oh, it's your driveway. Yeah. Just like plants and trees stuff, we are pruned. And believe it or not, our testimony, which is shaped by our life experiences, are the results of pruning. Now, pruning can be painful, it can be good, it can be bad, it can be really sad. I mean, you know, we've all experienced it. I mean, we've all lost loved ones, right? Whether it's a spouse or a parent, or in some cases a child. That's all pruning. Now, we don't always have an answer for why it happens, but that goes into the makeup of what we are, which also goes into how our testimony is crafted, which, when you move down the road, is used in witnessing, ideally. Ideally. And of course, that's tailored to everybody's thing. Because when you're witnessing to somebody, you're either going to quote scriptures, or you're going to tell them, this is what happened to me. Right? And I go back to was it last week or the week before, the blind man that Jesus healed. What was his testimony?
Right.
His whole testimony, I was blind, but now I can see. Because they were hammering him, trying to accuse Jesus of something and catch him. And all he said was, I don't know what the guy is, all I know is I was blind and now I can see. That's a pretty powerful testimony. I don't think any of us here are blind, are we? Anybody blind? Deaf? That's me, I'm deaf. You're not going to get a more powerful testimony than that. But if you don't use your life experiences for your testimony, you don't have credibility. You just don't. And if you don't use it at all, because believe it or not, if you're saved, which I'm assuming all of us here are, if not, talk to Larry afterwards, we have an employer. Because we have a mandate. What's our mandate as Christians?
To disciple people and baptize them.
Spread the word. Spread the gospel, spread the good news. If you're an employer and don't do your job, what happens?
Get
Fired.
Yeah, but listen, Robert, I'm not picking on you, but I can't say anything about Reed or really yell at me. Plus, Reed, you haven't worked for what, 50 or 60 years? For those who don't know, Robert, he fixes all this equipment. What do they call it? Anything of that stuff. It's all refrigeration and all that stuff, right? How long could you go and not show up and not fix anything before they finally said, you know, Robert, you're out of here? Could you make it a week?
No.
Could you make it a day?
No.
You're going to get fired, right? We have a job too, on top of our regular, as David would say, secular jobs, which doesn't appear in the Bible like in that, but you know what I mean. We work for the gospel of Christ. How long can you go before you get fired if you don't use it, don't do what you're supposed to do? Right. So let's just go through it. Ready, Cliff?
Mhm.
How much time you need? Are we close?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready.
Just watch this real quick.
Springtime is the perfect time to be pruning your grapes, especially this year when the temperatures dropped into the -20s. A lot of damage was done to the plants without us even knowing it, and now this time of year with new growth we can see what's alive and what's not. Let's first do a quick lesson on grapevine anatomy. The structure that goes vertically from the ground to the wire is known as the trunk. Once it becomes horizontal and runs along the wire, it is known as the cordon. From the cordon is last year's growth, known as spurs. From those spurs, the growth this year is called a shoot, from which this year's fruit will come. There's just a few basic tools that you need when you're pruning grapes. First, your hand pruners for the smaller wood that you'll be cutting. Secondly, the loppers for something that may be a little bit larger. Worst case scenario, the pruning saw for the really large stuff. And then, of course, for safety purposes, gloves and safety glasses. Pruning is the removal of plant material to achieve a horticultural goal. And today our goal is to maximize fruit production. We are also working towards maintaining the plant size and form, as well as optimizing the balance between shoot and fruit production. With this particular plant, you can tell that there's a lot of good green growth on it. So it's kind of through the winter in fairly good shape. What we need to do at this point is reduce the size of the plant itself. And we'll do that by coming in and cutting the canes down to 2 or 3 live buds. And then measure about a fifth width, 4 to 6 inches between the spurs, and remove anything in between. We also want to remove any growth that's pointing down that has been damaged by insects or damaged by the winter weather, wind, or hail. Hail damage shows up as scars along the canes. A properly pruned grape has 80 to 90% of its growth removed. As you can see from this plant, there's not very much left from the original plant. All the downward growth has been removed, and all that remains is upward pointing growth that's approximately a fifth's width, or 6 to 8 inches, between the shoots. With a good growing season, you can expect to have a bountiful harvest from these plants.
How boring was that? Just an example, how much was left of the vine when he got finished pruning?
Not much.
Yeah.
But what was the purpose of the pruning?
I'll
should
cut it off,
grow,
bountiful
new growth.
harvest.
The new growth, yeah, because you're going to get a more plentiful harvest if you prune. If you don't, you're not. And we are pruned the same way. And okay, we're going to go into this a little bit more, but Charlie, we're good? You ready? Yeah?
Your schedule.
No, we're talking pruning, so we want you to come up here and tell us how you do pruning.
What I have to say will make that look exciting.
Well, let's give it a shot. Charlie's going to give us a testimony.
March benefit, I was on a mini date. So,
What?
a mini date.
A mini
Have
date.
you ever had a mini
Where's
date?
your date? Where's your date? Where's your date?
Today. Right now, she's on her way to Washington DC.
He had a date in Pruning.
Get rid of it that quick. Yeah. The reason why it was a mini date, okay, she flew in from San Juan, we had dinner, she flew out to DC.
Ah, she's a stewardess.
Huh?
Let's hope it was your wife.
Wife? Oh yeah, it was her. She ended up having a 2-hour late. It's kind of funny. For those of you who don't know, my wife is a flight attendant, so she flies around. And the flight today was she went to San Juan, Puerto Rico, but then she had to come back and land in Fort Lauderdale, and she had a 2-hour layover. So I made dinner, and when she got off the plane, she had dinner, and now she's off to DC. So anyway, I didn't say that to get good boy points, but I'll take anything I can get right now. You know, we've been talking about testimonies and how things happen and things like that. I am the world's greatest procrastinator. When I was in high school, God spoke to me. Now, you have to understand, when I was in high school, they rolled out the stone tablets and the chisels. Okay?
You agreed to go to school?
I'm sorry, what?
No, we went.
No, we didn't go to school together. But you probably went to the school after I established. And God spoke to me very quietly for a long time, and then finally He said, you know, I'm going to leave you alone if you don't want to do this, and you can, we'll talk later on and stuff like that. And I came to the realization that, you know, God really is important in our life. And so that led me at that point to say, come on in. You don't know what job you have to do with me. But He said, that's all right, I won't leave you. And so when I was a senior in high school, I got saved. I really wasn't in any trouble that anyone could catch me at or anything like that. But over the years, with my testimony and my witness, I've gone away and come back, gone away and come back, those kinds of things. But here's what I've realized along the way. God makes our life a living canvas, and you can depend on His promises, and that's what my testimony and my witness is. I know that one of my sons is here only by the grace of God. He was born premature, and in those days they didn't have all the science they have now and things like that. There were 6 other premature babies in the intensive care unit, and my son's the only one that's still here today. And it sure wasn't because of the doctors. And they did an awesome job, and it wasn't the nurses, and it wasn't the equipment, and things like that. Along the way. And I know God did that to show me that He kept His promises and keeps His promises along the way. Because my testimony is that it doesn't make any difference what we do. If we become His, He remains faithful to us. And that's our example. It doesn't make any difference what we do. He remains faithful to us. I've become very appreciative of this living canvas that God has decided to write on. And I am the most flawed person you can ever find. For the last year and a half since we came to Florida, I've been trying to find a job. And to give you an idea how bad it is, I couldn't even get a job as a greeter at Walmart. I'm not sure if I was over or underqualified. I even applied to TSA, and I watched the TSA security people in the little hover-around scooters that are advertised late at night running around, you know, and things like that. So it makes you wonder what's going on. I finally just got a job, by the way. wasn't because of me, but I can tell you that the prayer I had was, Lord, I don't know what's going on. I feel so alone. Help me. And then all of a sudden, things came overwhelming. It certainly wasn't by chance. And it certainly wasn't because of me along the way. It's these things that for me, when I talk to people, when I get the chance to talk to people, brings my testimony alive. If all I did was talk about what happened when I was a senior in high school, and the music director of the church that I was at the time in the fall said, "You're still here?" Yes. Things like that. Our testimony has to be alive and continuing. It becomes a living canvas, is what I call it, along the way. And since then, it's still been rolling along in ways that are, since I got my job, in ways that have been overwhelming and unexpected along the way. When we talk to people, we need to let them know that God loves us and God will not abandon us because of us and our flaws and the things that we do. And that He demonstrates His faith and His fidelity, if you will, to us by making things possible. We have to be sensitive to it. And sometimes He makes it sensitive in ways that are very surprising to us. And I guess my message tonight is, with regard to my testimony, is that our relationship with God, with Christ, is living, and it's day to day, and it's current. It's not yesterday, it's today, day by day, along the way. And we need to appreciate it, and that's what we need to share with people, to let them know that they can have hope, they can have that relationship that binds us together despite our flaws and our shortcomings. And that's our testimony.
Does anybody think Charlie went through a little pruning process in his life?
Yeah.
Spread them around.
Here, hold on, give me mine. Yeah.
Everybody got one?
Does anybody need another one? Who needs it?
You have enough? I got 2 left.
I got 3.
We good? Joe, you got one? You got one? You good? Okay. Now here's a question. Doris, I hope Pete can pick with you. You read John 15:2, it's on the top there.
Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, He prunes it so that it may bear more fruit.
Okay, so who's the master pruner?
God.
He's going to do the pruning. Now, would you rather be pruned or taken away? Because some are taken away. You know, it gets to a point where it says, I'm done. Just cut it off, throw it in the fire. But if you prune it, it can blossom, it can produce more fruit, which is His plan. And it's done out of love. Charlie, you were pruned, I guess, more than once, right? I think all of us here have. We think about it. We've all gone through pruning. Maybe it helped us. Maybe we didn't see it for what it was. But we go through it. A lot of times we can't explain it, but we don't see that final picture. We just know what we're going through. And I'm assuming everybody here has gone through something that you wouldn't consider pleasant. All right? Okay, we'll go through this kind of quick. Floriculture, which I put the definition down here for you, it's the cultivation of flowers, especially of decorative flowering plants, usually on a commercial scale. That's just a definition. I don't know if anybody has studied it. Some people really love the gardens and all that. My experience with the gardens, which I'll tell the story real quick. When I was a kid, growing up in a suburb of New Orleans, and we lived in a place that, New Orleans sinks, as everybody knows. You know, remember the hurricane stuff, the whole place sinks all the time. It just sinks. And most people have to come in every year with about a dump truck load of sand and fill their yard in, because you can see it's lost a foot of ground, because it's a marsh. It's built in a bowl. It's the most ridiculous design of any type of Corps of Engineering you could ever have. Well, the house I grew up in wasn't filled with river sand like most of the places. It was filled with what they call black, rich alluvial dirt that was from Mississippi Delta, because my dad bought the house before they had all this sand stuff. They just filled it with the black mud. You could throw a stick in the yard and it would grow.
Wow.
It would literally grow. Anything would grow. Well, I was a teenager, and my next door neighbor, Mr. Neff, had bought a tiller. So I'm saying, well, can I use that? Maybe I'll make a little garden. So I borrowed his tiller, and I started tilling the backyard. And when I got done, I had tilled the entire backyard. And then my mom came home. This was a problem. And so she's throwing a fit. And again, just please everybody pray. Tomorrow my mom turns 87. Very important milestone for us. And she says that for her birthday, she's getting a hurricane. So that's what we're going to deal with. But after she yelled at me and pulled me by the hair here and the ear and threw stuff at me, and then she was just livid. And she says, okay, you can do this, but you have to eat whatever you plant. And I think, Mike, didn't I tell you this story? And so I said, no problem. I'm not a big vegetable eater. So I planted corn, I planted radishes, I planted potatoes, and things that I would eat.
Everything you would eat.
What?
Everything you would eat.
Yeah, that I would eat, because that's what she told me. Well, she comes out after stuff starts growing, because literally had to do no cultivation to this after I tilled it all up. You had this black dirt, you didn't need fertilizer or anything else. She comes out, she goes, well, where's your squash, okra, green beans? Yeah, I don't eat any of that. Didn't plant it. So she acquiesced on that a little bit, said, okay, you can plant other stuff even if you don't eat it, because she wanted the stuff. Fine. So my oldest brother, who lived about 2 miles from us, that worked out in the oil rigs, and he had bought a new house that was filled with this sand. He's planting a garden. Well, this was the most pathetic thing we ever saw. But nothing grew. And I mean, he's out there with clippers and, by hand doing all stuff. And he would have this scrawny little corn stalks this big. I had 12-foot high corn stalks. Look at radioactive stuff. And I literally left the squash on the vine to see how big it would get. It was as big as a basketball. But that was not anything I did. It was the dirt and everything else. Problem is, what you have to work with makes a big difference. Now, what I had to work with was some really good, rich soil that's come all the way out of Canada down the Mississippi River and been dumped over years and years here. This stuff is rich. On top of that, you get all the additives that were included that you're not going to get in sand, which I guess the organic name would be manure, which is a fertilizer. And that helps things grow. Now, I had a natural, I didn't have to dump it on it. Sometimes in our life, we have to get some manure dumped on us, so we'll grow. Now, the manure is not pleasant, doesn't smell good, doesn't feel good. You get heart pains from it because things happen, but that's the way we're pruned. And the manure is part of the process of fertilization, so that we can be fertile products of what God intends us to be. Now, if we ignore it, we end up like a little scrawny corn stalk that produces nothing. But if we pay attention, understand that we're being pruned, and understand it's for a reason, and see the big picture, we can benefit from it. So, let's go through a couple things. Plant physiology. Plants need carbon dioxide to photosynthesize to grow. Adults, that's us, expel carbon dioxide, so it's a good fit to have houseplants and greenery in one's environment. It illustrates the beautiful life cycle of God. We live in a place where things grow. Anybody got ficus at their house? Even with whitefly, you can't kill it. It's going to grow. But I know people who live in other parts of the country, they baby these things and put them in a pot, bring them inside, bring them outside, trying to keep them alive. We're trying to hack the things down and they keep growing back. You know, so your environment makes a difference. But we can grow a lot of things here that you can't grow somewhere else. Do we have anybody who's an expert in plants and stuff like that? Nobody?
I can grow them. I can grow them.
No, you got a powder puff tree. You don't count. Anybody besides Medora know stuff about plants?
I've done landscaping, but I know something.
Yeah, but there's tricks. Like if you're going to plant a tree in Florida and you want it to be healthy, you dig the hole twice as deep is what it is, and then you run water in it for a half hour, and that tree's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But if you don't, if you just throw the tree out in the backyard, it's probably not going to live.
Unless you live in New Orleans.
Well, if you live in the right place in New Orleans, yeah. But if you've been in New Orleans and smelled New Orleans, there's a reason why manure smells the way it does. Okay? There's a reason why if you go to New Orleans, everybody says, I had a wonderful time and the food was great, but you're eating in restaurants where it's very dark. Because they don't want you to see certain things. And for good reason. Because if you saw in the daylight, you probably wouldn't eat it. The food is good. But,
They have one of the circular drinks too. Those are pretty tasty.
well, yeah, most people who think they had a wonderful time in New Orleans because they can't remember it.
That's the good thing about my job. I know where to eat, not to eat.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Robert can tell you that you probably would never eat in a fast food restaurant if you saw what goes on behind the wall.
Yeah.
All right, Robert? Yeah, I've heard those stories. But the Kentucky Fried Chicken's
Don't
famous.
tell us.
We don't need to know.
Don't tell us.
I like the first.
Ignorance is bliss.
Okay, okay.
On some things.
Okay, let's go through this. Let's go through this quick. What does a plant endure when pruned? We saw it in the video. We saw how it was pruned. There was basically not a lot left to look at, but this plant was going to be much healthier for going through this process. Here's what. First thing a plant goes through is wound healing. The wound from the severed branch seals itself. If you cut off a little branch on your oak tree, you've witnessed this because you go back a week later, you see it's healing itself. It goes through that. That's a natural phenomenon that it goes through. Cells harden over the wound immediately, but the healing can take weeks, depending on the external elements of weather, water, and food. Just like us. We go through pains, problems, we lose things, we have hardships. Charlie looking for a job. How many people in here has ever lost a job? Well, let's make it easy. How many people has not lost a job? You know, you've never lost a job, Judy? It's so hard. Never lost a job. Okay. The thing is, sometimes the healing can be quick. Sometimes it can take forever to completely heal. How long since Tom passed away?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years and 2 months.
Can you walk through your house without seeing Tom?
No.
Can't do. I said, my dad died in 1972. Every day I go through that. You know, that's 40 years. 40 years. Everybody's had similar situations. Things happen. Families break up. You lose a spouse. Your spouse runs off and leaves you. You know, whatever it is, we go through things. You can't just turn the switch off and be done with it. You know, things happen. If you have kids, you know what the word disappointment means. How many of them have a kid that's never disappointed you? Oh, Carly, you're a liar. How many of your kids are disappointed in who the father you have? Okay, also the timing of the pruning is important. We may think we're sailing through life and everything's good. We go to church, we got clean clothes, we have a nice car and all that. Well, you know what? You're going to get pruned. It's a question of when, because you can't just keep doing the same thing. You don't evolve, you don't move forward. you have to be pruned back so that the harvest is plentiful. So the timing is also, but again, who's the master pruner? It's not us. It's not us. So we have to, at some point, realize maybe he knows what we need better than we do. Right, Stuart, you asking a question, you just give me the hand.
No,
Give me the hand?
Same.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention, you can't talk about the branches without being connected to the vine.
That's right. That's why we had the video with the vine. Remember, he described what the root was and the vine and all that. I said, I know it was boring, but there was good stuff in it. Now, pruning requires specific tools. He went through that. There are specific tools that are specific to each of us based on what our needs are, our abilities, our potential. There are some people that can do things. I mean, I wish Larry wasn't here to hear this because I'd hate to give him a compliment because it goes to his head. But if you've ever noticed how Larry can relate to many different type people at the same time, and he never gets upset. I can't do that. I don't think anybody else in here probably can, not to the level Larry does. Larry's got a gift for that. Probably wasn't born with it. Probably something that was developed that was the result of pruning. Timing. Larry's time is now to do what he does. Except the line about telling me you're in Atlanta. Which he did. God will give you for that. The optimum cut is required. A lot of times we don't understand why things happen.
Why things are taken away.
Yeah, you just don't know. And I'll say this, and don't get mad at us. Before Emily was born, we lost a baby at what, 7 months? 6 months? 5.5. Okay? We were happy. Laurie's pregnant. She's great, you know, because we're going to have a girl, which I had 3 boys. She had 1 boy. We're going along, and again, it was a tough thing. And I'm so glad that we were coming to this church because, and I'm sure Laurie can tell you, we would sit here, we couldn't talk to each other when we found this out. We're in this, what was that, where they do the ultrasounds and all that, do all the stuff. And we think everything's great. We're looking at pictures, and the doctor calls us in and basically tells us, you're not going to have a baby. And we're looking at the pictures of the baby. We're looking at it. And, which I guess was best, just came up, she says, I'm just going to come right out and tell you, this is the problem. She goes through this long name, and she's showing us books about what's happened, and what was the name of it? Holoprosencephaly. Whatever it is, it was stuff I'd never heard of, and it was way past Down syndrome stuff and all this. Basically, our baby, which was going to be Emma Grace, had no brain, had no heart, had no organs, and we thought, we didn't. They said basically the body usually rejects these by this point. It happens when people are, but they may not even know they were pregnant. It gets rejected immediately, and they never even knew it. That wasn't the case with us, and we had to go another 2 or 3 weeks with Laurie out to here, and people congratulate us all the whole time. We know what's going to happen. But he said, you know, we're sitting there going, well, you know, whatever God has, you don't understand. You will not have a baby at the end of this. It will not. There is 0% chance. Well, and she did, which I thought was a noble thing. She said, don't take my word for it. Let's send you somewhere else, get another opinion. We went to, was it Jackson Memorial? And to some specialists down there and went through the whole test. Of course, we're standing the whole time just following our eyes out. Because when they're done, I said, sorry. At the end, there's not going to be a baby. That was tough. We didn't know, but it was, what, a year later? We got Emily. Now, don't know why that pruning happened. Maybe it's so that we would appreciate what we have. But that was the act of pruning. And we have to go through these things. We are going to lose things that mean something to us. We don't know why. And when it comes to the loss of life, I mean, we never even got to hold that baby. That's different. I mean, there are people in our church that we all know that have lost a baby very young, but they held the baby in their arms. Hard to explain, hard to justify. But what does God say? The secret things are for me to know. The secret thing. Some of these things, we're not supposed to know. I'm sure when we get to heaven, we can ask those questions. Let's go to the end here because we're due here. Okay. Certain plants must be pruned to a specific size. Not all of us are meant to be governor, senator, president. Most of the times, I don't think anybody would really want to be that, but sometimes they do, they aspire to that. We're not all meant to be Dan Marino. We're not all meant to be the head of an IBM. But there are specific sizes that we are supposed to be content with. And we are to be content with that. But understand, God never said you're going to get the best parking lot when you go to the parking space at Publix. You're not going to get the $1 million mansion. Not all of us are supposed to have a $1 million mansion. Some people don't have a house. It's all different, but it's all for a reason. The size of our problems are part of the process of maturing and being pruned so that we can produce fresh growth and a multitude of things. I never got to hold that little girl, but I've held Emily. You never know why. You just don't know why. We're not supposed to. If we were supposed to, we would have these answers in advance. But we don't. So we need to be cognizant of that and understand the process. Now, okay, Dora, go ahead. Yeah, Larry?
It reminds me a little bit of what you're saying. We remember we're part of the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any difference if you're the little finger or the long leg.
Yeah.
You're as important. There's no differentiation. You're part of the CEO.
We all have the purpose.
We all have that part.
And our purposes are going to be different in everything. There's a whole lot of things I can't do that some other part has to do. I have a hard time figuring out how to work my computer. I didn't grow up with this stuff. When I have to deal with something on my cell phone, I have to give it to Matthew, and he does it for me, and you never know which one he gets. But again, we all have a special place. But Medora, if you would, read, it's at the bottom of the page, the verse, John 15:5 and 8 through 9.
I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love.
That's the essence of what we're supposed to remember. There's a place. There's a purpose, and we all have it. Now, if we don't learn from our pruning, we're going to end up withering away and being cut off. And what does that mean? Cut off, if you're going to stand as a Christian, you don't lose your salvation from that. But if you're cut off, at some point it's appointed that you're going to die, and you're going to stand before the judgment, and there's going to be no rewards for you. Because your time passed, and you gave away because you didn't follow the pruning and produce the fruit. So we just need to make sure in our daily lives, all the bad things we have to deal with, the troubles we have, whether it's financial, personal, relationship, who knows, maybe this hurricane turns and actually hits us and somebody ends up losing their house or something, tornado gets, whatever it is, it's part of the pruning process. It's not by accident. And we have to take it for what it is and learn from it.
Well, I think as well, you take for what it is and you use that as part of your testimony.
Yeah.
And you're witnessing. Because, see, they're looking for you to wither.
Yeah.
The so-called Christian. Well, this happened to you, so this is going to change his attitude now. But when you still have that peace, when you still have joy, and you can go to the Lord as you so beautifully taught us tonight, and say, Lord, now I know this is my pruning, and you love me so much, you're drawing me even closer to you. That's what that says to me.
Well, that's what the whole thing's about, is the fact that your pruning, like Larry said, that's incorporated into your testimony. Because your testimony, if you never open your mouth, is your life. It's your life. I mean, try and teach your kids over and over, don't drink, don't do drugs and all this stuff. And the first time they walk in and see you sitting there drinking and popping pills, well, you just lost your credibility. So your testimony is all a result of your life experiences that you can use to witness because you incorporate it in, because people are going to see that. And you don't want to lose your credibility, which we talked about last week. You have to have credibility or your words are empty. If you don't believe it, look at some of the so-called TV preachers that's gotten caught with their hand in a cookie jar over and over. They have no credibility left. And there's still some people that will send them money, but they have no credibility. Yeah. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful. Now understand, we are going to be pruned, but you don't have to be cut off. That's our choice. Yeah.
Just like they had with the little excerpt with the Steve, whatever his name was, that
Yeah.
you just act as, doing the best, and then you don't have any problem.
That's it.
That you do, it's not do as I say, not as I do, that you just live by example, and they'll come to you.
Because a lot of people, especially people who are not Christ followers, or people who have known you, the only witness they're ever going to be exposed to is your actions, not what you say. Yeah, you just want to be the person. It's like, say, what you do in private is where your character comes from, when nobody's looking. Somebody's always looking. That's the thing. Yeah, Joe.
I like to say always be preaching the gospel, and then when necessary, use words.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, what's Larry say? What's our testimony about? Who's it about?
Jesus.
It's not about us. We're just the vessel that he uses through the pruning process to develop a story. But if nobody hears your story, you didn't do any good. So, that's it. Are we good?
Good.
Everybody good? Dear Lord, we thank you again for this night, and we can come together and meet. We know there's places in this world where it's not even allowed. We said you bless us, and we thank you for Charlie and his testimony, and all the people here, Lord, are a good family. And let us not take this church for granted. And we ask for the ones going out to eat that you bless the food, give them good fellowship, Lord, and if possible, let's keep this storm away from us so we don't have to deal with too much trouble. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Does everybody know where Joe's House is? If you plan on going to dinner with us, you go out Lakeview, go Lakeview down to Coral Ridge, where the Publix Plaza, and it's right there.
Is it fun? Your hair is bad. It's good.
You join us for dinner?
Thank you.
Yeah, she'll tell you. Yeah. Who's doing it next week, the guys or the girls?
Guys.
Guys. Ron, you coming next Saturday night? Bring a treat. We're feeding everybody.
Hey, Vern. Are we skipping a week?
What?
Are we skipping a week for teaching these? Are we doing it next week or the week after?
The first Saturday next week.
He made an announcement we're skipping.
We're changing it.
No. Thank you.
Did I see Karen here?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if I see her, I'll remember not to say hi.